Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We have Quentin Wright, two-time NCAA champion, three-time finalist, and four-time All-American for Penn State. And he's Cael Sanderson's first NCAA champion at Penn State. How are you, Quentin?
I'm doing well, and that's the last record I have. I'm able to keep that one because all the other ones been broke that I ever set.
No one can take it away from you. That's got to be pretty cool that you're Cael's first at Penn State.
Yeah. It's funny. It's really humbling too. The program that Cael has created there at Penn State. You know, my season and my career would have been one of the all-time greats, but Cael's just turned all those guys into monsters. So it's been pretty fun to watch that. But like I said, the last record that I have and the one that can't be taken away is I'm Cael Sanderson's first national champion at Penn State. But that's only because David Taylor and Frank Molinaro lost.
Well, it doesn't matter. You still got history. I mean, you can't take it away. Whatever happens, happens, right?
But it was fun though. We won our first national title that year too, and it was a great season.
Well, backing up, you were recruited by Troy Sunderland to go to Penn State. What did you like about it initially that drew you into Penn State even before Cael got there?
Well, what happened was I grew up literally 10 miles away from Penn State. I grew up there my whole life, and I don't know, I'm one of the luckiest situation guys ever. I really fell into it where at the time we had Phil Davis. He just won a national title in 2008 under Troy Sunderland. And I said to myself, well, Phil Davis can win a national title at Penn State. I can win a national title at Penn State too. And Troy Sunderland, Dave Dernelan, they were the coaches at the time, and they've watched me my whole career ever since I was little because I'd come there all the time with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club and being a local kid. So they knew me, and they knew how good I was, and they knew my passion and my interest in sport and how I was just a no-nonsense, and I got after it. So they really gave me everything that I could ever wanted, giving me the scholarship, and then they brought me on a recruiting trip as well. And so they really knew me. They had me vetted out quite a bit. And I was praying at a youth group one night, and where do I go? I wasn't really getting too many offers. I was getting a few letters. When Cael first came to Penn State, I said, hey, thanks for recruiting me to Iowa. But they actually did send me one informational flyer back because I was kind of okay, or I would say pretty good, but not anything crazy good in high school until my junior and senior year. Junior year in high school, I went undefeated, won the state title, and then senior year, same thing as well. But I was a little bit, nothing new or flashy. I just, won matches, and I throw people, win matches. But in high school, it's more so that I would just win matches. So I didn't get highly recruited by all the big schools. At the time, we didn't have, Super 32 was still kind of like a smaller tournament at that time. So there wasn't a lot to go out there except for Fargo. I never won Fargo. I took third in one style twice. That was the best that's the best I kind of did out there for Team Pennsylvania. So I was kind of average, but yeah. And they recruited me. They knew how good my passion was. So Troy Sunderland recruited me, and Dave Dernelan, they put everything into me, and I had faith in them. And after seeing Phil Davis win a national title, I'm thinking, you know what? Or maybe it was 2000. Yeah, I think it was 2008. Phil won. I said, I can, or 2007. I said, I think I can win a national title. If Phil can do it, I can do it. So I said I wanted to go to Penn State. Now, the background to that, too, is that I knew how much the alumni at Penn State valued wrestling. Pennsylvania is a wrestling school, and there was a lot of anxiousness, put it that way, in the area because you have oh gosh, what's his name now? Lorenzo. Rich Lorenzo, he was just, everyone loves him. He was a fantastic coach and a really good guy, and he's still hanging around the area. And then you had Ira Looper, who was the big, a big alumni donor as well. And you had a bunch of the other alumni hanging out in the area. Well, they put all this money into the Penn State program back in 2003, I believe, 2003, 2004, and they made the Penn State room what it is today. Well, actually, I'll take that back. what it was from 2004 through 2014 or 15, whenever they just redid that area. They did the weight room and that wrestling room. And so during that time, I knew how much the alumni wanted to win. In order to win, you have to have the facilities. Well, they got the facilities, and then Sunderland, he put some good teams together, but he didn't quite get over that hump, winning the national championship as a team. And so kind of when I was being recruited by Penn State, I'm thinking, you know what, based on what's going on and the rumors and stuff going around, I might be at Penn State for 1 or 2 years before we get a brand new coach. And knowing the alumni, they're going to get somebody who's pretty good. You know, I didn't think no one had any idea they're getting Cael Sanderson, but I knew that they were going to get somebody good and somebody who could potentially take me to that national championship level or give me that shot. But even if that didn't occur, I knew if Phil Davis can do it, I can do it. So that's kind of why, I went to Penn State kind of early in that regard, knowing that in maybe 1 or 2 years I'll probably have a coaching change. We don't win a national title, but I was a young kid and I was ready to get things done and I wanted to help.
And then you came in, you went right away as a true freshman. You placed 6th at 174. Did you feel like you were ready right away to make an influence?
Yeah, that part of that is my mindset. I would say really your mindset is the biggest thing in college wrestling that you can, and a lot of kids have it now. Back then it was, even back then, I think it was me and Andrew Howe were true freshmen All-Americans that year. We were pretty good. But when I went into college, I thought, why can't I win? Physically, I didn't do a lot of winning there at the beginning, but that was my mindset. It's like, why not? Why can't I win? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find a way to win. And actually, I was going to redshirt that season, but then we had a kid, Dave Irwin from Ohio. He blew out his shoulder at the Michigan State Open that weekend, and I had 5 days to wrestle the number 6 seed in the country, or the number 6 ranked wrestler in the country. Coach says, "Hey, listen, we don't have anybody else. You mind wrestling this week?" I'm like, "Sure, let's do it. You want me to do it? Let's do it." So, and I wrestled, I think his name is Alton Lucas from Hofstra. And I wrestled him. It was at Rec Hall. It was the first home dual meet of the season. And I wrestled him at Rec Hall, and he took me down in the first 10 seconds. Just blew me on my feet, take down. People in the crowd were thinking, "Oh, man, this kid's going to get killed." Well, anyway, I ended up winning on a last-second takedown. I kept fighting in there, and I won on a last-second takedown. So that was my first college wrestling match, official college wrestling match, and my first official, home dual meet match, too. So that was pretty exciting. But I also throw in there too, was that it doesn't matter where you start, because when I wrestled Dave Irwin at the wrestle-offs in front of all the crowd, and I think he beat me like 6 or 7-2, or we did kind of like a tournament style during that time, and he just pounded me. So going from getting pounded by somebody like Dave Irwin, who was I think a 1 or 2 time All-American, either like a 1 or 2 time All-American for Penn State, to becoming an All-American myself this season, it was a pretty big change there.
And then you redshirted the next season. Cael comes in the next season. Was that a conversation you had with the staff about redshirting?
A little bit, because what happened was we got through that year, and at the NCAA tournament, kind of like Troy Sunderland knew that his job was done. Like he wasn't going to have. So we got the NCAA tournament, and that year, Dan Valamont, he ended up going 0-2 at the NCAAs. And Bubba Jenkins wrestled at Penn State. He gets some kind of weird disease, and we thought he was making it up at the time. And he goes like 0-2 at the NCAA tournament. Who knows if it was real or not, but maybe it was real. Probably was real, but we didn't give him benefit of the doubt at that time. He went 0-2 at the NCAA tournament, and then me and Frank Molinaro, we ended up All-American that year. But also Mark Perry was on our staff during that year for 1 year. Mark Perry was on our staff, and he really pushed me and Frank Molinaro to be All-Americans that year quite a bit. He really took us under his wings and taught us some more of that mental aspect of it, how to win. But Sunderland knew that he was kind of done. So he kind of just let us do whatever we want. He let Mark Perry kind of do whatever he wanted with us as well, especially towards the end, after Big Tens and NCAAs. He kind of knew that. And we didn't really see it. We just figured, okay, Mark Perry's going to be our coach for going forward. He's going to help us out, whoever comes in. And then they brought Cael Sanderson, and like less than a month later. Cael Sanderson was interested in a job, and Mark Perry wasn't too happy about it because he knew his job was going to go if Cael Sanderson came in. So that was a really exciting time because it was a shock. It was a big shock factor. Like, we knew you're going to get a coach, but we didn't realize you were going to get the coach. And at the time, Cael was kind of unproven, but he was good at Iowa State for the 3 years that he was head coach there. I think his stats was every single wrestler or all 10 weights made it to the NCAA tournament his 3 years at Iowa State out of the, was it Big 12 conference at the time? Yeah, the Big 12 conference, every single weight class made it to the NCAA tournament. So he had a kind of unknown pedigree when it came to coaching. I knew during that time too, a lot of people said, oh, he might be a good wrestler, but he's not that good of a coach because he was just on the Bobby Douglas. He was on the coattails of Bobby Douglas. So there was kind of unknown there. But as us wrestlers, when you get the chance to wrestle the greatest wrestler in college wrestling, that was super exciting for us. So we were excited to have him come in, and we were really pumped about it. And I love to tell people that first season when Coach Sanderson was there, the 2009 to 2010 year, he knew he was coming in. It was a fresh start. And at the time, David Taylor was going to Iowa State, so he transferred to Penn State, or he got the release to transfer to Penn State. You had me there, Frank Molinaro there. You got Cameron Wade. He was a young, pretty good heavyweight during that time. So we had a bunch of really good guys. And Coach Cael says with his Coach Cunningham and Coach Cody, he says, let's just redshirt these guys, because before Cael came to Penn State, Ed Ruth, crazy awesome wrestler, Ed Ruth, he committed to Penn State before Cael was ever he committed to Penn State around the Big Tens that year. So Cael wasn't even in the picture whenever Ed Ruth committed to Penn State, and he just liked the school, and we took him to a place called I didn't. It was actually Brian Pearsall, who's now the coach at Penn. He's 100% responsible for Ed Ruth at Penn State. He took Ed Ruth on his recruiting trip and to Penn State, and he took him to a place called Fat Daddy's and just got him the greasiest, grimiest food you can get, kind of like a hamburger with mozzarella sticks and just everything munched together, like a chicken tenders, mozzarella sticks, and a cheesesteak sandwich all munched together. And Ed Ruth, he kind of he liked the school, he liked the vibe, and he said, okay, I'm going to go to Penn State. And so he came to Penn State. So once Cael saw, we had Ed Ruth, we had David Taylor coming in, you had me, you had Frank Molinaro. Those guys already took red shirts, but he said, let's take these guys, let's redshirt them, and then let's kind of stack that team for 3 years in a row. So that's what their plan was from the beginning. We have 1 year here, and Cael knew that it was going to take a year to get the guys, I would say, off the team who truly did not want to wrestle. When Cael Sanderson started, we had a max 40 guys on the roster. At the end of Cael's first year, I like to tell people we had 16 people left on that same roster. When you take out the graduating seniors and you take out the guys who couldn't handle how hard it was. I mean, that first year Cael came, it was brutal, but it wasn't, it was on purpose, but he wanted to get rid of the guys who didn't want to be there because they loved wrestling. If you were there just to hang out, it was way too hard. There's a lot more fun things you could do than to come to hang out with a group of guys. So he really weeded everybody who really didn't want to be there. You were either on scholarship or you just loved wrestling. That was the only reason why you were in that room. And so after Cael's first year, we had I think 16 or 17 guys left before our nine kid recruiting class came in that year. So it was a tough year, but and Cael, he made it tough as well. But it was a lot of fun because we got the chance to wrestle with Cael. Cael wrestles more than anyone else in that practice room. It's unbelievable. He would stay 30 minutes after practice. All the kids had left, and he's there wrestling. He grabbed somebody, and he's still wrestling with them. I remember when he first came that summer, I'd go in the wrestling room, and it's just him and Cunningham, and they're wrestling each other. It was fun to watch. And when Cael first came in that first year, he kind of showed you what kind of a wrestler you were, because I also tell everybody that when Cael first came to Penn State, and I was an All-American, so I was decent. I was pretty good. true freshman All-American. I thought I was pretty good. Cael didn't take a shot on me for 2 weeks. He stepped on my toes and pushed me over. That's how he got his takedowns. For 2 weeks, he did that. And then he's laughing about it. And I'm thinking, holy crap, why am I so – I was like, why am I this bad? This is awful. You just – in some cases, you kind of feel like a bad wrestler. But then you learn from it, and it takes about a week to 2 weeks. You get your feet – moving your feet correctly better, and you learn from it. So that was a pretty fun experience there too. But that first year, yeah, absolutely brutal. But Cael was priming us to have that first run that we had. The first 4 titles, which I was a part of those 3, starting from 2011 through 2014.
Let's talk about the 2011. So that starts it of the 8 out of 9, which Penn State still has. They've won 8 out of the last 9. Starts with 2011, but you're really the key to a lot of good things happening there. So let's start with the regular season being over. You're 13-6 going into the Big Tens. You just got pinned by Travis Rutt, and you go into the Big Ten tournament. Penn State beats Iowa by a point, and you win the Big Ten championships. How do you make such a turnaround from 13-6? You're the number 9 seed at the – I think it was 8 seed at the Big Tens, and then you go on and win the Nationals. How'd you do that? Incredible run and a great story in our sport.
Yeah, so that's a unique story. When Cael first came to Penn State, it's funny because we got that whole documentary series right now, ESPN, called The Last Dance, and everyone – I remember when I was growing up, there was a song, I Want to Be Like Mike, Michael Jordan. Well, when Cael first came to Penn State, you're thinking, well, I want to be like Cael. So I want to do what Cael does and wrestle how Cael does and be as dominant as Cael was. And so that whole first year, that redshirt year, whenever I was wrestling, I'm trying to ankle pick people right and left, and I'm trying to get the ankle put, and I couldn't do it. I was just awful at it. I can't do it. That's not how I wrestle. But Coach Cunningham, Coach Cael, they're like, hey, just give it time, give it the process. It's just part of the process. Keep trusting us. Well, I kept doing it, and ended up becoming, I would say, miserable. Coming to practice, I'm trying to stuff. And I'm just miserable trying to be Cael Sanderson and doing these ankle picks. So at the beginning of the season, I was kind of miserable. And the coaches, they kind of saw that. They're kind of like, what's going on with you? And then on top of that, I had a bunch of home problems. Any high-level athlete always has some type of home problems, I would say, or they come from a type of home problems. And so I felt kind of abandoned there from my home. And so I kind of felt all alone. And I was kind of miserable, and I was winning, but it just didn't feel – I was having a bad beginning of the season there with schoolwork. Schoolwork was always good, but I was just having a rough time go there between personal life and being in school. Just kind of felt alone during that time. And then what happened was I was wrestling I think it was first dual meet that season. I was wrestling a kid, Robert Hamlin, which I knew he was good, but I knew he was good and he was tough. And I'm a returning All-American, so I should have no problem beating this guy. Well, I lose to him in the home dual meet, that first home dual meet in I think in November. I lose to Robert Hamlin from Lehigh. And that kind of just sent me in downward spiral, thinking I'm supposed to be good and I'm losing to this guy. That kind of hurt. So then the next weekend I was wrestling the Nittany Lion Open with our big wrestling tournament, and I let a guy pick me up and slam me. Or actually, I let him pick me up. Coach says, hey, you got to get away. I'm in the finals. Kid was from Binghamton, and I tried to do a standing Granby. On the way of my standing Granby, I was lazy with it. My feet never touched the ground, so I kind of ducked my shoulder, and I let the guy power bomb me in my shoulder into the mat, and I busted my AC joint. I don't know if you can see it right there, big old bump in my sweatshirt like that. All right. So I'm out for 6 weeks. I couldn't hardly move my arm. So I got injured really, really bad there. And that was the November 4th. December 4th, that weekend. And they started rehabbing me right away. But when you get injured like that, it takes a lot to rehab it. So now I'm miserable because the way I'm wrestling. I hate how I kind of hate my wrestling self because I'm trying to be Cael Sanderson. I'm having problems at home, and schoolwork is tough. And now I'm with one arm. I'm busted. I'm broken. And I'm thinking, the only thing I kept doing is just kept moving forward. So I just rehabbing every day, trying to get a little bit better. and I really got to say my now wife, she really helped out during that time. Her and her family just, helped me, gave me a little bit of stability during that time frame too, because I had so much craziness going on. Well, coach figures, okay, we're going to rehab him, we're going to get him back, and he's going to be good again. Well, coaches were working with me. I traveled with the team down to the Southern Scuffle that year. And we tied Cornell at the Southern Scuffle. And I'm thinking, man, if I had just been wrestling, we would have beaten Cornell at the Southern Scuffle that year. That would have been 2011, January 2011. So then I come back in the season, and Coach Cael he's been working with me for 2 weeks. He's been wrestling with me. I'm kind of feeling okay. I'm wearing a shoulder brace that season. And I think I win my first match against Pittsburgh, but that's just because I threw him. But then after that, I wrestled against Iowa and Gambrell. He beat me pretty good. I took 4 shots. He had 4 spin behinds, 1 knee tap, and then 3 spin behinds outside. He went to my bad arm side. And Coach Cael, he was mad after that. He was pretty mad. He figured that was the year we were going to beat Iowa, because he hasn't really beaten Iowa yet. And he wanted to beat Iowa that year. So I would just say he was not happy about losing that duel meet. And I was just one of the pieces. Frank Morano lost that duel meet too, and Cameron Wade lost as well. So there was guys that could have won, but so it was just, that was tough. And then right after the Iowa match, Coach Cael, he kind of chewed me out a little bit, asking me if I really wanted to be a wrestler, if I wanted to wrestle anymore, asking me those types of questions. So I had to do a lot of thinking there. And I said to myself, I was like, you know what, Self? If I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose my way going forward. So it was at that point when I made that mental change that I was no longer going to try to beat Cael Sanderson. And because I was praying about this too. And I said, God, why am I so miserable when it comes to wrestling? And he says, well, it's because, or he says, you're trying to be Cael Sanderson. I said, what do you mean? He's the greatest. And God's like, I didn't create you to be Cael Sanderson. I created you to be Quentin Wright. I was like, I kind of got a point there. And he's like, well, what's Quentin Wright like to do? I said, I like to pick people up and I like to slam them. And he's like, well, then go do that. I was like, all right, I'll try. In about 2 or 3 weeks now, I kept wrestling in dual meets and stuff. But my philosophy changed. There was 2 things. I had a blast double leg and I like to throw people. So that's kind of what I went back to. I went back to blast double leg and throw and trying to throw people. And it went from that, I think it was February 4th against Iowa, all the way through the Big Tens, up to the Big Ten tournament. Whenever my whole mentality changed, I just practiced by myself, shooting double legs, and I tried to throw people in the practice room. And I said, you know what? I don't care if I win by 1 point. I'm going to figure out a way. 1, nobody can take me down. And 2, if nobody can take me down, I got to get off the bottom against everybody. And I got to have at least 1 takedown. I got to get 1 takedown on everybody. So I figured I'm going to win every match 3-2. Nobody's going to take me down. I'm going to get off the bottom, and I'm going to get 1 takedown sometime during the match. And that was my whole goal going into it. And I tried that. I said I really didn't figure that out until I would say late February. I tried doing that. But I kept working on my double legs and trying to throw people. And when shooting double legs, when you have 1 arm that wasn't working, because I kind of used, my arm is a little bit excuse, and I quit using it as excuse anymore. But once I figured that out, I kept trying it. And coaches, they were kind of letting me go, but they saw my passion and how hard I was working. So they kept encouraging me. Like, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Keep doing like that. And it took about 4 or 5 weeks of doing that up until the Big Ten tournament. I go in Big Ten, as you said, I got pinned in my last home duel meet against Travis Rutt. That was a funny pin too, because I was wrestling well. I was doing great against him. And I think he was like number 8th ranked guy in the country at the time. I was doing well against him. I had double boots in, and I had him in a little bit too long. I should have bailed out and given up points. And I learned a lesson in that match. Don't hold on too long until you can't get out. Because what happens, he literally just stacked me. He reached up. I had double boots in. He reached up. He grabbed my headgear and my head, pulled me straight down. And you could just see it. It was just like coming down. My shoulders touched. Beep. That was it. Over the top. It was pretty embarrassing. But at that time, I think I was ranked 17th in the country at that point. But losing to Rutt in that home duel meet, getting pinned in front of the home duel crowd, was I just lost 3 in a row right there. And I was last of losing 3 of the Big Ten dual meets we had going in Big Ten. So there was a lot of hope for guys like me going into that season. But I just kept believing in myself and trying to win those matches 3-2, shooting double legs with the strategy. Don't let anyone take you down. Get one takedown and get off the bottom. Win every match. And that's what I did, and that's what I did going into the Big Ten tournament. And I had a few calls go my way. That helped quite a bit as well. Sometimes you get lucky, but that Big Ten tournament was unbelievably special. Because one thing people forget, we had a kid named Andrew Long. He kind of got messed up after that season. Made some mistakes, but he came from Iowa State as well, Andrew Long, and he was a huge piece of that. We had 5 guys in the finals. Another kid who, James Bolrath, really good wrestler. He was on the team that season. He died of cancer about 2 years ago. He was integral to that as well because he got a major that was at half a point that got us, to 1 point ahead of Iowa. That Big Ten tournament. So it was just a magical experience, not just me winning, but you had David Taylor, Ed Ruth, Frank Molinaro. I mean, all of our guys, but we had 5 guys in the finals and we had to go 5-5. And Andrew Long, he was wrestling a kid from, I think, Wisconsin at the time. I forget his name right now, but he got a fleeing the mat call. Andrew Long got a fleeing the mat call in the last 10 seconds to make it go into overtime. Then he got the takedown in overtime to win that match. So it was just a bunch of things happened, and then I ended up winning. I found a way to win, and with me winning, it sealed the championship. We ended up winning the Big Tens, which it was unbelievable. And at that point, I was happy. Hey, I won Big Tens. We won Big Tens. I made it. I was able to figure it out. But then you got NCAAs 2 weeks later, and I was going to be happy just making NCAAs that year because I had such kind of like a bad year. Figured, it was kind of bad. But then the brackets came out. The brackets for NCAA tournament came out, and when I saw the brackets, I said, holy moly there. I said, God, you really want me to win NCAAs, don't you? He's kind of like, yeah. I was like, because you couldn't have put me in a worse spot in the bracket because I had to wrestle all the tough guys. That year, I had to wrestle every single the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 seeds, all of them, in order to win it that year. So I just, at that moment when I saw the brackets, I knew something magical was going to happen, and just keep pushing, keep working it the way I had been, and that's what ended up happening. It was just magical how it worked. I kept doing what I was doing. I was able to get a few more takedowns, so I ended up winning most matches like 5-2 as opposed to 3-2. So I ended up winning there, and the kind of thing that stinks about it though was I was the only champion because I was the kid that was having a horrible year. He ends up winning it, and then we had our all-stars, David Taylor and Frank Molinaro, the guys that were just like they were the leaders of the team. They were the Mr. Consistent, and they ended up losing. So it was like sour and sweet at the same time. It was awesome. We won our first national title, but everyone's like really sad that David Taylor and Frank Molinaro lost. And I was just kind of like the, oh, good job, kid, story of the tournament. Like, hey, he ended up winning it, but it wasn't as big of a deal because that year, getting me in the finals sealed the championship. So pretty much we had the team title sealed up after the semis. So everyone is already excited about winning the national title because and then it was just about getting the champions. And having David Taylor and Frank Molinaro lose, it was kind of like a downer for us because they had already celebrated winning the national title because we had sealed up. For the most part, we had it sealed up after the semis that year.
It was your first NCAA championship as a team since 1953. What was the response? It had to be elation after you guys had won it as a team and the excitement. What did that feel like?
Oh, it was unbelievable. I remember that year. It was in Philadelphia, and on top of that, it's in Philadelphia. That national championship is in Philadelphia, so it's like Pennsylvania, Penn State, defend the state mentality. We just had that mentality, and Cornell was probably the biggest threat that year. But just kind of like every year since, all the top teams they have some kind of meltdown, except for and Penn State's the team that has a meltdown the least of all the other teams. So they ended up winning it. We ended up winning it that year because Cornell kind of had a meltdown with their guys and just didn't place as high as they should have. But the fans were unbelievable, happy. because we had a ton there being in Pennsylvania. I mean, just the whole place was like Penn State fans. So it was just, I mean, nonstop. Anyone in the wrestling community in Pennsylvania was just ecstatic, was happy about it.
You guys won, of course, as you say, going through 2014 and then past that 2016 until the present. But you got second at nationals, and then first your senior year, you went 184 and then bumped up to 197. Did you feel yourself improving those final 2 seasons?
Oh yeah, I got a lot better because you hone your skills. The way Cael teaches at Penn State, and he did a lot of learning that season as well. I think Cael kind of learned that, hey, these guys are good at what they are good at. I don't have to try to really focus on them being good at the ankle pick. So after he saw kind of like what happened in my situation, he realized that if he can refine what I do, but make what I do good even better. Try to find ways to make it better, then try to kind of like focus on doing the ankle picks and these types of things that he was really good at. So that's what Cael does. That's what he's been doing since then, is that he really finds what you're good at. Well, let's make it even better. And then we can refine some of these outside areas, outside positions as well.
What was that like moving to 197 for your senior year? Did that help you? You clearly won it, but Ed Ruth moved up and a few other guys that benefit you to move up to 97?
Yeah, we kind of had to do it because we had Matt Brown. We needed to fit him in the lineup between and David Taylor. He just stayed consistently at 165. And then we had Matt Brown, 74. We could put him in at 74, and then Ed Ruth at 84. And Ed Ruth, he naturally weighed 187, 185 when he was fat and happy. Sometimes a little bit bigger. Sometimes a little bit bigger. And I naturally weighed about 205 at the time. So we weren't really cutting weight, but the difference was you could feel it in the opponents as well. You couldn't manhandle him. Like Ed Ruth, he couldn't manhandle and force this cradle like he could down at 74. And I couldn't force the double leg like I could at 84. I couldn't blast through people because I told people wrestling a kid from Pittsburgh, Matt Wilps, it's like hitting a brick wall. And there was no way there's no way I'm taking that kid down. He was just way too big and too strong for me to handle at 97. So we were a little bit undersized, but we were happy. We were enjoying it, loving wrestling, and we made up for it in our ability to scramble out of bad positions. But yeah, we had to make that move so we could fit Matt Brown in there because we had nobody else that could fit in at 97 that would give us a good team shot. And Coach Cael knew that we weren't really losing any NCAA or any team points by having Ed go to 84 and me go to 97 because they were kind of a little bit more open weights during those years.
You mentioned some of those personal problems you had in that sophomore year leading into the NCAA championships. Were you able to alleviate those on those final 2 seasons?
Not really. They kind of stuck around because every wrestler has their I would say their own situations, their own problems that they have to work through. And it's just learning and how to manage it. I had a lot of family relationship with problems. And that's why Coach Cael makes it so important to show a bigger picture with all of our wrestling guys. We actually have a lady, her name's Bonnie Epstein. She's actually the lady that sits on the bench with the wrestlers. And she's a sports psychologist that does things in a completely different way than the normal way it's done. And I don't know, for me, it worked, but it's really helped me clear up some of those, I would say, bad practices of the past. So, and a lot of that has to do with your mindset. Think of it as a record player. Your mind is just a record player that plays over and over and over. And anything somebody says to you, if you allow it, it becomes part of that record player that keeps playing. So for me personally, it was my dad had a saying that you have to do everything perfect in order to win. Well, during that sophomore year, what was not perfect was I had an arm. I was missing an arm. There's no way I could win now because I'm now imperfect. So therefore, I'm not going to win. I'm a loser. And then all of a sudden, that just became how you think. And it was during that sophomore year whenever I had to and one thing she helped me do was my dad was a football player. He actually played under Bo Schembechler for Michigan, the big football coach back when it was his first year at Michigan, back in the day, I think the 80s or something like that. And so he was into football, and what Bonnie helped me do was said, those things, they're not true. I want you to take them, put it in that football, and throw it back to him and say, that's I understand what you're saying, but that's not me. Have these back. So by physically able to do that, now you start letting go of some of those things in the past, because when you get down to those moments of crisis, and crisis isn't a bad word, it's just like a high pressure situation. When you get down into that high pressure, your body goes into a survival mode, and your survival mode is, what's your record player? What is playing in your head? And you have to play those good things, and that's why Coach Cael always says to us, he doesn't tell us to try to win matches. He just says, move your feet. Focus on moving your feet. These little things that you can control. Focus on moving your feet, because if you focus on moving your feet, you're going to move your feet in the right direction. You're going to win the match. So that was part of my personal problems. And some wrestlers, they might have, let's say, substance use. I know Andrew Long that year, he had a historical problem that Coach Cael learned another good lesson about, that, hey, be friends with you got to be friendly, and you allow them to be open to coming to you whenever they see a problem. Because like with Andrew Long, we could see it for months. There was a problem there, but back when Coach Cael first came to Penn State, it was you turn one guy in for doing something wrong, the whole team's getting in trouble. So we were all like, hush, hush, quiet. But as soon as Andrew Long got in trouble, the stories just started flying. The coach was like, well, why didn't you ever say nothing? It's like, well, coach, remember that time you made us run for 45 minutes in the gym because one guy went out on his 21st birthday? Just things like that. So each wrestler has their own personal problems. They got to learn to work through it. But the biggest thing is they have to ask for help. And busting my shoulder gave me the chance to really ask for help with the family problems that I was going through during that time. And then, to get the root of my family problem was that I felt at the time, I felt abandoned by my dad, who was my support for wrestling my whole time growing up. And whenever you feel abandoned like that, then I felt like I don't care about wrestling. The only reason I was doing it was because it made my dad happy. And if he's not happy, then I don't care about wrestling. That was my mindset during that time. And really, the truth of it was, I liked wrestling because I love to pick people up and throw them. And that was the truth of it. But my mind I was focusing on one aspect of it and not the whole picture. So she kind of helped me work through that. But every wrestler will go through a situation. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to have some type of problem that you have to learn to overcome. You have to learn to get better, and at every level. But in college, more so, because at the college level, you're never going to be the greatest. When it comes, you might not be you're never going to be the strongest guy. You're never going to be the smartest guy. You're never going to be the quickest. At the college level, everybody is equal, because you are all the same. You're all on the same boat. You can't really you're not going to be able to beat everybody on strength. You're not going to be able to beat everybody on just your brilliance. So you have to learn to wrestle in every position, or get strong in every position with your mind, strength, conditioning. You have to learn to do all that together, because it's going to take all those skills to win consistently and win at the top level. And if you have something that's affecting that mat time or affecting you on the mat, you have outside activities. It can either be family, relationships, substance abuse, bad habits. Something outside is going to affect your wrestling. So, and that was one of the keys to Cael, is trying to treat that whole person. Because when we can make them help these areas outside of wrestling, we're going to make their wrestling better. When they have, I would say, kind of like if they have weights, you take away these weights that are outside of wrestling, you cut them off, then that wrestling is going to get better. It's going to help them get better at wrestling.
Are you able to take those lessons you just talked about and outlined and use them in your coaching right now with youth wrestlers?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I do right now. I coach a team called 4M Wrestling. You can see that right there. And I'm dealing with these high school kids, junior high kids, elementary kids, and even before, right now, we're all quarantined at home because the COVID-19 virus going around. I remember 2 weeks before this, I kind of prepared the kids. I said, listen, guys, we cannot control what happens tomorrow. Something happened, but be ready for it. I said, we can't control what happens. Get your mind ready right now that this could potentially happen. Things get canceled. We can't control that, but it's okay. You're going to be okay. Because you don't go to the tournament, you're still a good person. You're still a good wrestler just because you don't go to the tournament. So I kind of use that mindset and that philosophy to really help set these younger kids up better to handle disappointment, to handle learning, giving them the strategies and techniques to handle that disappointment, the failures, and the success. Kids win the state title. Hey, good job. Your wrestling paid off. Now let's go for the next goal.
Are you still engaged with Penn State wrestling?
I'm a little bit out of the loop right now, I would say, because I work in a place, Clearfield. I work near Clearfield, and so that's like 40 minutes away from the Penn State College. So I don't get over there that often, but I still text coaches every once in a while to see how they're doing, see how things are going. But, they're doing pretty good. They don't quite need my input, I guess.
Do you still stop by some meets, though? Do people still want to chat with you?
Oh, absolutely. Now, the fun thing about this is growing up in this area. So I grew up 20 minutes away from Penn State, and I went to high school 20 minutes away. And now I still live 20 minutes away. So the people in the area, especially the wrestlers and the people in the area, every time they see me, they stop and say hi, and it's still fun. It's still good. I still get a lot of face and name recognition just because I live in this area my whole life.